Today, I'll tell you a story so gripping it feels like the West itself is holding its breath. Set among isolated cabins, frozen fear, and the sound of wolves in the distance. This is a land where survival depends on instinct, and where enemies don't always appear the way you expect. It all began with a single scream in the night, one moment that forced a mother to choose between certainty and the unknown. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Rowan Calderay knelt in the sun-baked dirt outside her lone cabin, fingers clawing stubborn weeds from a garden that barely agreed to live. The late afternoon heat pressed down on her shoulders, but she didn't slow. This land had already taken enough. She refused to give it more. 3 years on the frontier had roughened her hands, yet her will remained unbroken. That thin stretch of vegetables was more than food. It was defiance. "Mama, look!" 5-year-old Rowan Calderay burst around the cabin corner, his voice bright against the stillness. His dark blonde hair flashed in the light as he ran, a carved wooden toy clenched in his fist. The sight tightened her chest, as it often did. He looked so much like Bennett, her husband's eyes, her husband's smile. "Easy with that stick, Corey," Rowan called, wiping sweat from her brow. "Don't run so close to the drop." Their cabin sat on a low rise overlooking the valley, the Mogollon Rim's jagged cliffs cutting the horizon. Arizona was like that. Beautiful enough to steal your breath, deadly enough to take your life. The settlement where they had first arrived lay 20 miles east. What remained now was ash, splintered beams, and memories better left buried. As Corey knelt in the dirt nearby, Rowan's thoughts slipped back to that night 3 years earlier. The screams, fire clawing at the stars, Bennett dragging her from their burning home, shoving their baby into her arms, shouting for her to run, the arrows that struck him before he could follow. She had fled into the dark, with Corey pressed tight against her chest, his cries smothered by her dress. Behind them, war shouts tangled with crackling flames and the dying voices of neighbors. 23 settlers were killed. Only Rowan, Corey, and 2 others survived. 2 days later, people from the nearest town found her barely alive, still clutching her son. They called it a miracle. She called it a curse. To breathe when so many had not. To remember. To hate. Because hate, she was told, kept you standing. Agnes Holloway had whispered it at Bennett's hurried graveside. "Don't let it go, girl. It's all we've got out here." Rowan took those words and built her life around them. Protect Corey, and never forget who destroyed everything she loved. The Apache were monsters in human skin. That was what everyone said. She believed it completely. After 1 year among crowded streets and pitying eyes 30 miles west, she shocked them all by using Bennett's savings to build this isolated cabin. A woman alone with a child? They doubted her. But Rowan learned to shoot, to hunt, to live as hard as the land demanded. Solitude suited her grief, and here she could raise Corey far from whispers and hollow sympathy. "Time to come in," she called as the sun dipped behind the cliffs. "Wash up for supper." Inside the cabin, rabbit stew simmered over the fire. The single room was tidy, spare but warm, marked by small comforts. A bright quilt on the bed they shared, a short shelf of salvaged books, a wooden horse Bennett had carved before Corey was born. After supper, Rowan washed dishes in a basin hauled from the stream half a mile away, while Corey played quietly on the floor. "Mama," he said suddenly, "tell me about Papa again." Her hands paused in the water. He asked less often now, but it still cut just as deep. "Your Papa was the bravest man I ever knew," she said softly. The words were ritual. He built houses with his hands and set fences straighter than arrows. He sang awful songs that made me laugh, she continued, and he loved you more than anything. More than you? Corey asked. Different than me, she said with a sad smile. He had the biggest heart. Corey hesitated. Did the bad Indians kill him? The familiar knot tightened in her chest. Yes, the Apache attacked our settlement, but he saved us. Remember that. He saved us. Later, after Corey slept, Rowan sat near the dying fire, mending one of his shirts by weak light. Outside, wind curled around the cabin, its moan setting her nerves on edge. She reached for the rifle Bennett had taught her to use and checked the chamber. A distant howl rolled through the valley. Wolves, most likely. They rarely came this close, but winter had been brutal. Hunger made predators bold. Rowan banked the fire and slipped into bed beside Corey, pulling him close. Sleep came in fragments, broken by dreams of flames and moving shadows. Near dawn, the howls drew closer. She woke instantly. Not just wolves, something else. Rowan slid from bed, rifle in hand, and crept to the window. Moonlight revealed them. 4 wolves circling near the chicken coop, and beyond them, at the tree line, a darker shape shifted. A rider. Her blood ran cold. Cold flooded Rowan Calderay's veins. A rider sat watching from the edge of the clearing. The outline was unmistakable, the lean shape, the posture, the presence of an Apache warrior. No, she breathed, fear tightening around her throat. Not again. Corey shifted in the bed. Mama, shh, stay where you are, Rowan ordered softly, forcing her voice to hold steady as panic surged beneath it. The wolves crept closer now, confidence growing with hunger. Chickens shrieked in the coop, wings beating wildly, while the shadowed rider remained still, watching, waiting. Waiting for the wolves to drive them out. Waiting for the right moment. Rowan lifted her rifle. Her pulse thundered, but her hands did not shake. One wolf edged too close to the door. She fired. The shot shattered the night. The wolf yelped, stumbled, and collapsed in the dirt. The others scattered for a heartbeat, then regrouped, and now the rider spurred forward. Corey, under the bed, Rowan said, calm on the surface, terror coiled tight inside. He scrambled to obey as she worked the rifle, reloading fast. Hoofbeats rolled across the ground like distant thunder. The Apache was closing in. The wolves surged again, driven by hunger. One launched itself at the door, jaws snapping against the wood. Rowan fired a second time. Too fast. The bullet missed. She was trapped between 2 threats, wolves at her door and an Apache warrior charging straight toward her cabin. Moonlight caught the rider as he broke into the clearing. Sharp cheekbones, tense eyes, streaks of war paint across his face. A rifle was slung across his back. A knife rode at his belt. This was no peaceful approach. Stay hidden, Rowan whispered toward the bed. Corey whimpered softly in response. The wolves turned, momentarily distracted by the approaching horse. Then something impossible happened. The Apache raised his rifle and fired at the wolves. One dropped instantly. The others scattered again, but they did not flee. The rider swung down from his horse in a single fluid motion, placing himself between the cabin and the pack. When the largest wolf lunged, he fired again. Another rushed from the side. He met it with steel. His knife flashed in the moonlight, movements precise and deadly. Rowan stood frozen at the window, watching him fight the very beasts threatening her home. When the last wolf retreated into the darkness, the warrior stood breathing hard. Blood, his own or the wolves', she couldn't tell, gleamed along his arm. Then he turned toward the cabin. Rowan raised her rifle again, sighting the door. "I'll shoot," she called out, her voice stronger than she felt. "Don't come any closer." There was a pause. Then a deep voice answered, accented but clear. "The wolves will return. Your gunshot will draw more." "The only danger I see is you," she shot back, finger firm on the trigger. "The boy," the man said. "He is safe." He moved toward his horse, which had remained calm through the chaos. From a pack, he retrieved something and approached slowly, both hands visible. "Medicine," he said. "For wounds, the wolves will return, with others. You should not stay here tonight." "We're not going anywhere with you," Rowan snapped, even as she knew he was right. Wolves hunted in numbers. What they'd faced could have been scouts. A small sound from beneath the bed pulled her attention for a heartbeat. When she looked back, the Apache had set the bundle on the doorstep and stepped away. "Why are you helping us?" she demanded. He stood silent long enough that she thought he might not answer. Then, quietly, he spoke. "Not all blood is spilled from hate." He gestured north. "There is a place safe from wolves. 2 miles, by the red rocks. I will go there. You may follow, or you may stay. The choice is yours." With that, he mounted his horse and rode into the dark. Rowan remained frozen, rifle trained on the empty space he had left behind. "Mama," Corey crawled out from under the bed, eyes wide. "Is the bad Indian gone?" She lowered the rifle slowly. "Yes, he's gone." She swallowed. "And I don't think he meant to hurt us." "He killed the wolves," Corey said simply. "They were going to eat our chickens." "Yes," Rowan murmured, trying to steady her thoughts. "Yes, he did." She opened the door with care, rifle ready. On the doorstep sat a small, leather-wrapped bundle. Beside it lay a dead wolf, its powerful body still and silent. Proof that none of this had been a dream. Inside the leather-wrapped bundle, Rowan found dried herbs and a thick paste that carried the sharp scent of pine and damp earth. "For wounds," he had said. Yet neither she nor Corey bore a scratch. The distant howl of wolves decided the matter for her. They were coming back. More of them this time. "Corey, we're leaving," Rowan said, already moving through the cabin with quick, controlled urgency. "Get your warmest clothes on." "Why? Where are we going, Mama?" Corey asked, confused by the sudden rush. How could she explain when she barely understood herself? "Somewhere safe," she said, stuffing food into a small sack along with Corey's wooden horse. "Just for tonight." She considered leaving a note in case someone from the settlement came looking, then let out a bitter breath. No one would come. No one had visited in months. With Corey bundled tight and her rifle loaded, Rowan stepped into the night. Clouds swallowed the moon, leaving the land wrapped in darkness. "Which way?" Corey whispered, gripping her hand. "North," Rowan said. "By the red rocks. That's what he said." She knew the place, a jagged formation visible for miles. "This way." She lifted Corey into her arms. He was getting heavy, too heavy for a long walk, but fear gave her strength. "Hold on." They pushed forward through the dark, Rowan's heart pounding with every step. Was she making the worst mistake of her life? Following an Apache warrior into the night? Everything she had believed for 3 years screamed that this was madness. But the wolves' howls, closer now, drove her on. Between certain death and uncertain safety, there was no real choice. The walk felt endless. Corey's weight dragged at her arms. Her breath burned in her chest. Just as her strength began to falter, she saw it. A faint glow ahead, tucked against the base of the red rocks. A small fire burned in a sheltered hollow. Beside it sat the Apache warrior. He looked up as they approached, his expression unreadable. Rowan set Corey down but kept him close, rifle still in her grip. "We didn't have a choice," she said, her voice cold despite her exhaustion. "The wolves came back." The warrior nodded once and motioned toward the fire. "Sit. Rest." Corey stared at him openly. "Did you really kill the wolves with your knife?" "Corey," Rowan warned, pulling him closer. The warrior's face softened slightly as he looked at the boy. "Yes, wolves are not evil. They are hungry, but they cannot have you." The plain certainty of his words startled a laugh from Corey. The sound, so rare these days, hit Rowan like a blow. Her son was laughing in front of an Apache warrior, the very people she had taught him to fear. "What's your name?" Corey asked boldly. Before Rowan could stop him, the man answered, "I am called Sahan." "I'm Corey," the boy said proudly. "That's my mama, Rowan." Sahan inclined his head, but said nothing more, turning back towards the fire. Rowan settled Corey beside her, as far from Sahan as the narrow hollow allowed. The warmth soon weighed on the boy's eyelids, and within minutes he slept against her side. "Why did you help us?" Rowan asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. Sahan studied her across the flames, dark eyes reflecting the firelight. "You believe all Apache are killers," he said, not as a question. "I know what I saw," she replied, anger stirring. "Your people destroyed our settlement. They killed my husband." 23 died, he said quietly. "Not my people, not my band." "You're all the same," she insisted, though doubt had begun to creep in. "As all white faces are the same," he answered calmly. "The ones who hunt Apache children, who burn our crops, who break treaties before the ink dries." Rowan had no reply. "There was a raid," he continued after a moment. 3 summers ago, near the Big Canyon." "Canyon Creek," Rowan said, her throat tight. He nodded. "Not my band. Renegades. Men who left our ways and followed only anger." "And I'm supposed to believe you?" she asked, her voice weaker now. "Believe what you wish," he said, "but ask yourself, if I wanted you dead, why would I fight wolves to save you?" The question hung between them, unanswered. "Sleep," Sahan said at last. "I will watch. The wolves will not come here." Though Rowan fought to stay awake, exhaustion dragged her into restless sleep. Dreams of fire, wolves, and watching eyes twisted through her mind. She woke with a sharp gasp, disoriented by red stone walls and unfamiliar ground. Corey still slept beside her, but Sahan was gone. Panic surged until she spotted him just outside the shallow cave, crouched beside a newly lit morning fire. The night rushed back to her in a single breath. The wolves, the impossible rescue, the silent march through darkness to this hidden refuge. In the clear cruelty of morning light, Rowan Calderay's choice to follow an Apache warrior felt even more unreal. Yet they were alive, unhurt. She rose carefully, making sure Corey Calderay remained asleep, and stepped outside. The air was sharp and clean, heavy with pine and sage. From the edge of the shelter she could see the valley spread wide below her, the faint outline of her cabin resting in the distance. "Your home still stands," Sahan said without turning. "No fire." She wondered whether he meant the wolves, or the memory that still burned inside her, the first home swallowed by flames. "The wolves?" she asked. "Gone," he replied. "For now." He stirred something simmering in a small pot over the fire. "Hungry?" Her instinct was refusal. Hunger answered first. She nodded once. As he poured the stew into a wooden bowl, her eyes caught his arm. A long, deep gash stretched from elbow to wrist, wrapped in a cloth darkened with blood. "You're hurt," she said before she could stop herself. He shrugged. "Wolf's tooth. It will heal." Her thoughts jumped to the medicine bundle he had left on her doorstep, the one she had stuffed into her pack without thinking. "I kept the herbs you gave me," she said. "For wounds." Something like surprise flickered across his face. "You took them." "I did." She hesitated, unsure why it mattered. Then she pulled the bundle free and held it out. Their fingers brushed as he accepted it, and she withdrew quickly. "I can help," she added, awkward but certain. "I've treated worse." Sahan studied her in silence, then nodded and extended his arm. As Rowan loosened the stained bandage, she felt his gaze tracking every movement. The cut was deep, inflamed, the skin hot beneath her fingers. "This needs cleaning," she said, steady now. "Do you have water?" He pointed to a skin nearby. She dampened a clean strip of cloth and began carefully washing the wound. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. "Why were you near my cabin last night?" she asked, unable to hold the question back any longer. Silence stretched, long enough that she thought he might refuse. "I watch," he said at last. "The boundary, where my people's land meets white settlements." "You're a scout?" "A guardian," he corrected. "I keep peace." "Alone?" Others watch elsewhere. As she spread the herbal paste over the wound, she studied him. "You've seen me before, at my cabin." It wasn't a question. He nodded. "Many moons? You and the boy?" The thought should have frightened her. Instead, a strange calm settled in. If he had wanted them harmed, he'd had endless chances. "Thank you," she said quietly, tying a clean bandage around his arm. "For last night. For the wolves." He acknowledged it with a slight incline of his head. "Mama?" Corey's drowsy voice drifted from the cave entrance. He rubbed his eyes, then brightened when he saw them. "Mr. Sahan? You're still here?" "Mr. Sahan?" the warrior repeated, faint amusement touching his voice. Something like a smile softened his face. "Are you hungry?" Rowan asked, taking a second bowl of stew from Sahan. "Mr. Sahan made breakfast." Corey nodded eagerly and settled near the fire. After one bite, his eyes lit up. "This is good. Better than Mama's rabbit stew." "Corey," Rowan scolded, embarrassed. Sahan's eyes crinkled, almost a smile. "Different plants," he said. "Desert spices." "Can you teach Mama?" Corey asked earnestly. Before Sahan could answer, a sound cut through the quiet. Hoofbeats, fast and closing. Sahan was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. "Inside, both of you." "Who is it?" Rowan asked, already pulling Corey toward the cave. "Soldiers," Sahan said grimly. "Blue coats, cavalry. What would happen if they found her and Corey here, with him?" "You should leave," she urged. "If they see you, inside," he said sharply. There was no time to argue. She rushed Corey into the cave, heart pounding. From the entrance, Rowan watched as Sahan scattered the fire and buried the remains beneath dirt and stone. Moments later, riders emerged into the clearing, 4 cavalrymen in dust-stained blue, led by a sergeant she recognized from her rare visits to town. Behind them rode a civilian, Silas Marine, one of the survivors of Canyon Creek. "Sahan," the sergeant called as he pulled his horse to a stop. "Figured we'd find you up here." To Rowan Calderay's surprise, there was no hostility in his voice. Sahan lowered his rifle but did not relax. "Wade Hollister," Sahan replied evenly. "You're a long way from the fort." Tracking a renegade band, Hollister said. They hit a ranch near Prescott 2 days back. Killed the rancher. Took his wife. He glanced over his shoulder. Silas Marine here thinks it might be the same bunch that hit Canyon Creek a few years ago. At the mention of Canyon Creek, Rowan stepped forward without thinking, emerging from the cave despite Sahin's warning look. Rowan Calderay? Silas Marine's eyes widened. What in God's name are you doing out here? His gaze snapped to Sahin. With him? The accusation was sharp. Hollister's hand drifted toward his sidearm. Wolves, Rowan said quickly. They surrounded my cabin last night. Sahin saved us, killed 3 of them and brought us here so we wouldn't be torn apart. Silas's face hardened. And you just followed him? An Apache, after what they did to Bennett? To all of us? It wasn't his band, she said, the words surprising even herself. Canyon Creek was hit by renegades. That's what they all say, Silas muttered. Sahin's a scout for the army, Hollister cut in, his tone practiced. Has been for 2 years. Best tracker we've got. The truth hit Rowan like a blow. Sahin worked with the army, the same army sent to hunt Apache raiders. She turned to him. Is that true? Sahin met her eyes without flinching. I track those who break the peace, Apache or white. It makes no difference. Wrong is wrong. He helped us find the men behind Canyon Creek, Hollister added. Most of them, anyway. 3 are still out there. The worst of them, he continued, led by a brute named Rowan Mark. Rowan Mark, Rowan repeated softly. The name sent a chill through her. Settlers spoke of him in hushed voices, an Apache renegade known for cruelty. We believe he's behind this new raid, Hollister said, heading south, maybe Mexico. Sahin was supposed to meet us at the fort, he went on. When he didn't show, I figured he was still on his patrol. Rowan Calderay slipped out of the cave then, clutching Rowan's skirt as he stared wide-eyed at the soldiers. Mama, he whispered, loud enough for all to hear. Are these bad men? No, Rowan said quickly. They're soldiers. They protect people. Silas dismounted and walked closer, frowning. You shouldn't be out here alone, Rowan. It isn't safe. You and the boy should come back to the settlement. I'm managing, she said stiffly. With some help, apparently, Silas muttered, shooting Sahin a dark look. Sahin killed the wolves, Corey announced. They were going to eat our chickens, but he stopped them. Silas's expression softened as he looked at the boy. Is that so? Well, that's fortunate. He turned back to Rowan. Still, you should come with us, at least until this renegade mess is settled. She hesitated. The settlement had never felt like home. Too many stares, too much pity, too many reminders of what she'd lost. With Rowan Mark out there, the boy should be safe, Sahin said quietly. The woman, too. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Concern, perhaps, or understanding. All right, Rowan decided. Just until it's safe. She looked to Sahin. Will you keep tracking them? He nodded once. It is what I do. Then we'll go back to the settlement, she told Silas. Only for now. As Silas helped Corey onto his horse, Wade Hollister leaned close to Sahin, spreading a map across his saddle and speaking in low tones. Rowan gathered her few belongings. When she came across the medicine bundle Sahin had given her, she paused. On impulse, she stepped toward him. Be careful, she said softly. These men sound dangerous. All men are dangerous when filled with hate, Sahin replied. Then, after a brief pause, he added, Watch for my sign when it is safe to return. 3 hawks circling above your cabin. How will you make hawks circle? Rowan asked, puzzled. A faint echo of a smile touched Sahin's mouth once more, gone as quickly as it appeared. A private sign, meant only for her. It wasn't until Rowan Calderay was riding behind Silas Maureen, Corey Calderay seated safely in front of him, that she realized how completely her world had shifted in less than a single day. The Apache she had sworn to hate had saved her son's life, shielded them both, and then turned away to hunt the true butchers of Canyon Creek. Nothing fit the simple shape she had believed in. Nothing at all. The settlement looked no different when they returned. The same dust-choked main street, the same wooden storefronts leaning beneath the sun, the same wary glances from people who had never quite forgiven Rowan for choosing isolation over their community. 2 weeks passed after the soldiers brought her and Corey back. Each day dragged longer than the last. They stayed with Pearl Winslow, a gentle widow who asked little and gave freely, warm meals and a narrow room behind her house. Corey adapted quickly, laughing with the settlement children, but Rowan grew restless. Her thoughts wandered constantly, back to her cabin, back to Sahan. "Any word from the patrol?" she asked Sheriff Alden Pike when she met him outside the general store. He shook his head. "Nothing yet. That's not unusual. Takes time to trail renegades through those mountains." She nodded, hiding the tightness in her chest. 2 weeks with no news. Were they still hunting Ruin Mark? Was Sahan alive? "You know," the sheriff said carefully, "folks are talking about your Apache friend." "He's not my friend," Rowan replied at once, though the denial rang hollow. "He helped us, that's all." "Still," Pike said, studying her, "most Apache don't go out of their way to protect white settlers, especially women living alone." There was a question beneath his words. "Wade Hollister said he works with the Army," she countered. "As a scout," Pike agreed. "True enough, but out here, alliances shift fast." As Rowan walked back toward Pearl Winslow's house, she found herself defending Sahan in her own thoughts. He wasn't like the raiders who destroyed Canyon Creek. He had rules. He had risked his life for her and Corey. That evening, while Corey arranged wooden soldiers on the floor, Rowan sat by the window. The setting sun painted the distant mountains in bands of purple and gold. Somewhere beyond those ridges, Sahan was tracking the men who had taken everything from her. "Rowan?" Pearl Winslow appeared in the doorway. "There's someone asking for you at the back." "A native woman." Surprised, Rowan followed her into the kitchen. In the fading light stood an elderly Apache woman, her face lined like carved stone, her eyes sharp and searching. "You are the one," the woman said in thickly accented English. "The one Sahan speaks of." Rowan's heart jumped. "You know him? Is he all right?" The woman extended a small bundle wrapped in deerskin. "He sends this, says you will understand." Rowan's hands trembled as she unwrapped it. Inside lay a carved eagle and a scrap of paper marked with a crude map. An X had been placed not far from her cabin. "What does it mean?" Rowan asked, but the woman was already turning away, vanishing into the shadows between the buildings. That night, Rowan barely slept, the carved eagle clenched in her hand. A warning? A message? She studied the map until every line was burned into memory. She recognized the place, a distinct rock formation about a mile north of her cabin. By morning, her decision was made. "We're going home," she told Corey, as she packed their few belongings. "But what about the bad Indians?" he asked, confusion clouding his young face. "Not all Indians are bad," she said gently. "Remember Mr. Sahan? He helped us." "Is Mr. Sahan coming to see us?" Corey asked hopefully. Rowan hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe." Pearl Winslow tried to dissuade her. So did Sheriff Alden Pike when he caught them loading a borrowed wagon. "At least wait for the patrol to return," he urged. "Make sure it's safe." "I've waited long enough," Rowan said firmly. "We'll be fine." The journey back took most of the day. As the cabin came into view, relief mixed with unease. It stood untouched, just as they had left it. "Home!" Corey shouted, jumping down and running ahead. Rowan followed more carefully, rifle ready. Nothing stirred. Inside, everything was unchanged save for a thin coat of dust. By nightfall, the fire burned steady in the hearth, and Corey slept safely in bed. Only then did Rowan take out the carved eagle and the map. "Tomorrow," she whispered. "Tomorrow." Dawn broke clear and cool. After setting Corey to chores and warning him not to wander, Rowan set out alone, the eagle and map secure in her pocket. Her rifle rested easily in her hands. The rock formation appeared exactly where the map promised, its jagged shape visible from far off. As she drew closer, the land lay silent, but the feeling crept back. She was not alone. Someone was watching. "Sahan," Rowan Calderay called softly. "Are you there?" Movement flickered among the rocks. A figure stepped into view, but it was not Sahan. It was a young Apache woman, perhaps a few years younger than Rowan, with an infant bound securely to her back. "You came," the woman said in clear, steady English. "Sahan said you would." Rowan straightened, wary but curious. "Who are you?" "Ayara," the woman replied. "Sahan's sister." She touched the small bundle on her back. "This is my son, Nico." "Where is Sahan?" Rowan asked at once. "Is he all right?" Ayara's face tightened. "He is alive, but he is hurt." "Hurt?" Alarm surged through Rowan. "How badly?" "The soldiers found Ruinmark's camp," Ayara said. "There was fighting. Sahan killed Ruinmark." She pressed a hand to her own side, marking the wound. "But he was cut. He cannot travel to the fort." Understanding struck hard. "The soldiers brought him to your camp," Rowan said. "But your healer is gone." Ayara nodded. "He sent me for you. He said you know how to heal." Rowan's thoughts raced. "I need to get my son, Corey. I can't leave him alone." "Bring him," Ayara said without hesitation. "Our camp is safe, hidden." The choice should have terrified her, bringing her child into an Apache camp. But it did not. "Wait here," Rowan said. "I'll return with Corey and supplies." An hour later, they followed Ayara along a narrow trail hidden among the mountains. Corey, wary at first, soon became fascinated by the baby, firing questions that Ayara answered with patient warmth. The Apache camp was smaller than Rowan expected, only a handful of wickiups tucked into a sheltered canyon. Women paused in their work to watch them pass, curiosity mixed with caution. Children froze mid-play, staring openly. "They will not harm you," Ayara said quietly, leading them to a wickiup set slightly apart. "Sahan is here." Inside, the air was thick with smoke and crushed herbs. Sahan lay on a bed of furs, his chest bare except for a blood-soaked bandage wrapped tightly around his torso. His breathing was shallow. His eyes were closed. "Sahan," Ayara whispered. "She has come." His eyes opened slowly. Recognition flared, then relief. "You came," he murmured. "Of course I came," Rowan said, kneeling beside him. "You saved us. Now let me help you." Corey lingered near the entrance, eyes wide. "Is Mr. Sahan going to die?" he whispered. "No," Rowan said firmly, already loosening the bandage. "He is not." The wound was deep. A knife slashed through muscle, narrowly missing vital organs. Infection had set in. The skin burned beneath her fingers. "I need clean water, fresh bandages, and my medicines," Rowan said briskly. "And a fire. The water must be boiled." Ayara moved at once. Rowan turned to Corey. "I need you to be brave. Can you help Ayara while I take care of Mr. Sahan?" Corey nodded solemnly. Like when you helped Mrs. Dorothy Hale with her baby. Just like that, Rowan said, grateful beyond words. For hours she worked without pause, cleaning the wound, applying poultices made from her own supplies and Iyara's herbs, stitching the deepest gash with careful, steady hands. Sahin remained conscious throughout, watching her with unblinking focus. He never cried out. "You have done this before," he said quietly, as she tied the final stitch. "Many times," Rowan replied, wiping sweat from her brow. "My father was a doctor. He taught me." "A medicine woman," Sahin murmured. "Strong hands, good heart." The simple words warmed her more than she expected. "The fever is the danger now," Rowan said, returning to business. "We must keep it down." Night had fallen by the time she finished. Corey slept beside Nico, the two boys curled together like pups. The women brought food, rich stew and flatbread, which Rowan ate gratefully. "You should rest," Iyara said, draping a blanket over her shoulders. "I will watch my brother." Rowan shook her head. "I'll stay. The next hours matter most." Iyara studied her, then nodded. "You care for him." It was not a question. Rowan did not deny it. "He saved my son," she said quietly. "He hunted the men who killed my husband." "He speaks of you," Iyara said softly. "The brave white woman who lives alone, the one with fire in her eyes." Flushed, Rowan turned back to checking the bandages, unwilling to trust her voice. "He needs water," Rowan Calderay said quietly. "Small sips." She kept watch through the night, cooling Sahin's brow with damp cloths when the fever surged, guiding the bitter herbal tea Iyara had brewed past his lips. Near dawn, the heat finally eased. His breathing steadied, and he slipped into deeper, calmer sleep. Only then did Rowan allow herself rest, curling beside Corey Calderay on the furs Iyara had spread. Sunlight woke her, filtering through the Wikiup's entrance, along with voices outside. Men's voices. English. She rose at once, smoothing her rumpled dress, and stepped out to find Wade Hollister with two soldiers, speaking with Iyara. "Rowan Calderay," Hollister said, surprise clear in his tone. "Didn't expect to find you here." "I'm tending Sahin's wound," she replied. "It was infected," Hollister nodded. "We were concerned when he didn't make the fort. Came to check on him." He glanced toward the Wikiup. "How is he?" "Better. The fever broke, but he needs rest." "That's good news." Respect colored Hollister's voice. "He's a brave man. Took on Ruin Mark himself while we dealt with the other renegades." He paused. "He also saved the rancher's wife. She's safe at the fort." "And Ruin Mark?" Rowan asked, hardly daring to hope. "Dead," Hollister said, "along with most of his band. We got them all this time, the ones who hit Canyon Creek. It's over." The word washed through her like rain after drought. Over. The men who had killed Bennett Calderay, who had burned their lives to ash, were gone. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "And thank Sahin when he wakes." Hollister tipped his hat. "We'll head back to the fort. I'll send a patrol in a few days, to check on him, and to escort you and your boy home, if you want." "That won't be necessary," Rowan said with quiet certainty. "We can find our own way." After the soldiers left, she returned inside to find Sahin awake. Corey sat beside him, chattering about the camp and the children. "The soldiers were here," Rowan said, checking the bandages. "They say Ruin Mark is dead. All of them." Sahin nodded once. "It is finished." "You killed him," she said softly. "The man who led the raid on Canyon Creek. For 3 summers I hunted him," Sahin replied, his voice weak but steady. "For what he did to your people, and to mine. Your people? Rowan asked. Ruinmark killed my father, he said. When my father refused to join his renegades, he betrayed our ways. He brought shame to all Apache. Understanding settled into place. That's why you worked with the army, to find him, to restore balance. To restore balance, Sahin corrected. When blood is spilled, there must be justice, or hatred grows like poison in the heart. His words struck her deeply. Hadn't she carried that poison for 3 years, letting it shape her solitude? Thank you, she said simply, taking his hand. For everything. His fingers closed around hers. You saved my life. We are in balance now. But what she felt as their eyes met was not balance. It was something new, something that quickened her pulse and warmed her cheeks. In the days that followed, as Sahin grew stronger, Rowan and Corey remained at the camp. Corey flourished among the Apache children, learning their games and collecting new words with easy joy. Rowan spent her hours with Sahin, changing bandages, helping him walk short distances as strength returned, talking late into the afternoons. She learned of his childhood in the mountains, of Apache traditions and beliefs. He listened as she spoke of Bennett, of life before Canyon Creek, of her hopes for Corey. In the evenings they sat outside the wickiup, watching stars gather while Corey played nearby. Your cabin, Sahin said one night, a week after they arrived. You will return soon. She hesitated. I'm not sure. Corey is happy here. And you? He asked, searching her face. I've never felt safer, she admitted. Or less alone. Something softened in his expression. Hope, perhaps. There is a place, he said carefully, between the mountains and the valley, near water, good land, not Apache territory, not white settlement, between worlds. What are you saying? Rowan asked. He took her hand, gentle, certain. 2 broken hearts can make one whole. 2 paths can join to form a new trail. Her breath caught. Are you asking me to build a life with you? If you wish it, he said simply. You, Corey, me, a family. The word rang through her like a bell. Family, something she thought she had lost forever. The settlers, she began, and my people, he acknowledged. Some will not understand, on both sides, but times change. Old hatreds cannot rule forever. And Corey, she asked, watching her son laugh with Iyara's boy, Nico, their voices carrying on the evening air. He has Apache brothers now, Sahin said with a small smile, and a father, if you allow it. Tears filled her eyes at the tenderness in his voice. You would let me be his father? Rowan Calderay asked softly. I already am, Sahin replied, placing a hand over his heart. She thought of the years that had driven her, of grief sharpened into anger, of hatred kept alive like a stubborn flame. And she thought of this man, who had risked everything to set a wrong right, who had shown her that love could grow even in the harshest ground. Yes, she whispered at last, the choice settling into her bones. Yes, I want that. The smile that crossed Sahin's face, his first true smile, changed him completely, filling him with a joy that mirrored her own. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, a promise rather than a claim. Rowan felt something long frozen inside her finally begin to thaw. When they parted, she noticed Corey watching them, a hopeful question written across his face. Come here, she said, holding out her hand. He stepped closer, eyes flicking between them. Mama? She knelt so they were eye to eye. How would you feel, she asked carefully, if Mr. Sahin came to live with us? If he became your papa? Corey's eyes widened. For always, Sahin said quietly, if you want it. A grin spread across Corey's face like sunrise. Yes, he shouted, throwing himself into their arms. Yes, please, as Rowan held her son and the man she had once sworn to hate, but now loved. She felt the last sharp pieces of grief and anger finally fall away. There would be challenges ahead. Judgment, hard days, a new life to build. But together, they were strong enough. 2 years later, the homestead nestled between the mountains and the valley had flourished under their care. A solid cabin, larger than Rowan's first, stood beside a clear running stream. Corn and beans stretched across fertile ground, and a small orchard promised future harvests. Rowan hung laundry on the line, pausing to watch Corey and his little sister, Rowan Calderay, born a year after she and Sahin were wed in a ceremony that honored both their ways. The children chased butterflies through the garden, their laughter blending with the steady rhythm of Sahin repairing a fence nearby. Life had not been easy. There had been hostility from both sides, settlers who shunned them, Apache who questioned Sahin's choice. But there had been allies as well. Wade Hollister, now a captain, visited when he could with his family. Iyara and her husband built their own home nearby. Even Pearl Winslow surprised many by declaring that love was love, no matter the color of skin. Slowly, their homestead became neutral ground. Apache and settler children played together. Trade passed peacefully from hand to hand. Old wounds, cautiously, began to heal. "They're coming!" Corey called, pointing down the trail as riders approached. Today was special, a gathering to mark the peace accord Sahin had helped negotiate between his band and the territorial government. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning, a fragile promise meant to prevent future bloodshed. As guests arrived, Apache families, nearby settlers, soldiers in dress uniforms, Rowan felt gratitude wash over her. From the ashes of loss, something beautiful had grown. Sahin stepped beside her, slipping an arm around her waist. "Happy?" he asked, though he already knew. "Complete," she replied, leaning into him. "Who would have thought," she said softly, "that it would all begin with wolves?" "I knew," he answered, "when I saw you standing in your doorway, rifle ready, protecting your son. Your spirit called to mine." "Even when I hated you?" she teased gently. "You hated a shadow," he said. "Not me." She turned to face him, seeing in his eyes the same love that filled her heart. "No more shadows," she promised. "Only light." As they joined their guests, their children racing ahead, Rowan reflected on the long road that had brought them here. From hatred to understanding, from fear to trust, from isolation to community. The path had never been easy or straight, but it had led to this life, this love. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Your presence means more than you know. If today's story awakened something inside you, don't let the trail end here. There are many more tales of courage, devotion, and faith waiting to be discovered. Subscribe, comment, share, and come back as we continue this unforgettable journey. Thank you, truly. Aviso legal. Disclaimer. All stories are intended solely for entertainment and may include fictionalized scenarios or dramatization derived from historical contexts. While AI assists in production, human creators supervise and adjust every piece to maintain sincerity, credibility, and emotional quality. We adhere entirely to platform regulations regarding AI content, ensuring no deepfakes or misleading portrayals. Licensed materials are used responsibly. Republishing, modifying, or extracting content without authorization is not allowed. We appreciate every viewer who respects originality and creative effort.